Welcome back. Let's discuss how we can simulate a transaction on the front end by connecting to a mainnet fork using Brownie on the back end. In our previous tutorial on safety, we demonstrated how you can, before you run a transaction, be a little bit safe. Then the process was to fire it up in Metamask, but before you hit confirm, grab the transaction details, paste it into Brownie, decode the input, and understand what's going on. Ideally, simulate the transaction in a forked mainnet and make sure it's working as intended. But there's some drawbacks to this method. First off, oftentimes users need to see the queues on the front end to understand if it's working as intended. And second of all, many transactions go in several different parts, but this method only works to get the first transaction. But usually the first transaction is just a simple approval, so it's not all that interesting. However, what we can do is, instead of connecting to the website through an actual mainnet, we can connect the website to a mainnet fork in some cases. And this will allow us to run the transactions as much as we like, completely safely, and see how the front end reacts before we actually run the transaction. So not every website supports this. Some are connected via the backend. I'm going to demonstrate it using Curve. First up, I'm going to fire up a console. I'm using Alchemy. Inferior archive nodes, unless you're paying for it, it gets stale after about 10 to 20 minutes and it expires. So I find it better to use Alchemy for this sort of situation because you could leave this on overnight. I could come back tomorrow and this node would still be working just several blocks behind the actual mainnet. Also, a lot of front-end developers like to use Brownie, and if you have Alchemy, then you can stay connected. I have another problem. My dev account has no money. Fortunately, because I'm connected to a mainnet fork, I can give myself all the money I like. Account 0 is one of the pre-funded accounts. So I'll just transfer all the money from account 0 to myself. And to confirm that I am in fact loaded, my dev account has not been loaded into Brownie, but I can unlock it by using accounts.at, paste in the address, and force the transaction. Now they have an unlocked accounts object. I check the balance, and I'm in good shape. I'm a wealthy individual. So next up, I need to connect the front end. So I'm using Brave Wallet. The steps are very similar for MetaMask, and you'll notice that there's already a localhost connected to 8545, but you can't necessarily use this because this one is going to be passing a chain ID of 1337, and most sites are going to be checking the chain ID. Not a problem though. I'm going to head to settings. Again, this is a very similar process on MetaMask. I'm going to call this forked mainnet. I'll pass it RPC URL 127.0.0.1.8545, and this time pass chain ID of 1. I don't need those other parameters. And I click save, and I'm connected to a forked mainnet. And you can see that my account is in fact flush with 100 testnet Ethereum. So now that I have connected, I'll go ahead and refresh. Curve is elegantly architected such that it thinks I have 100 full Ethereum. So now I can actually click swap. And it's going to go ahead and run. Now, my browser is a bit slow at popping up the MetaMask, but not to worry. It's going to pop up MetaMask and things are going to go fine. So I can now pretend that I'm very wealthy, use Curve like a rich person, and make sure that my transactions go exactly as I would hope before I actually commit my real money. Very useful. I use this method all the time. It doesn't work for every site, but when it does, it's always best to run the transaction on the front end and make sure that everything's working great. Hope this helps you stay a little bit safer, friends.